Mi gente, he pensado invadir una casa en United States, ya que me enteré que existe una ley que dice que si una casa no está habitada, podemos expropiarla.
The house came with something unexpected. A man living in their home, who they say refuses to leave.
So Adele, you're getting arrested right now?
I'm being arrested.
For what?
For being in my own home.
A federal appeals court ruled a Texas law that would allow law enforcement to arrest people illegally crossing into the United States will stay on hold at least until next week.
And this comes as shelters in border towns are reaching a tipping point for housing these migrants. Fox's Bowen Kadrovich is in El Paso. And Bowen, what are some shelters seeing?
Anthony Raji, well, one shelter director here tells me that in the past several days, he has noticed a spike in migrants coming to his shelter. He says this could potentially be a sign of another mass migrant wave to come to the city.
The numbers in custody that were reported to me this morning was slightly over 2,500. Where we get concerned is when that number starts approaching 3,500 or exceeding that, which is representative of their capacity, and because you'll see additional releases at that point. And the number of encounters has increased as well.
Martin says the shelter takes on local homeless and migrants. One group at the shelter are 4 migrants from Guatemala that were picked up by Border Patrol Saturday. One tells me they traveled a month to get to the United States, and they plan to go to Los Angeles to find work.
Because it's the famous American dream, everyone wants to come to this country to be able to support themselves and their family back home. They can't do that without a job in the U.S.
Now, earlier this week, the city of El Paso extended an emergency ordinance to support shelters here by 30 days. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott also sent 200 soldiers to the border here. In El Paso, Texas, Bowen Kadrovich, Fox 26 News.
All right, Bowen, thank you so much.
So those
What migrants do is they simply skirt the buoy and then cross over toward the U.S. side of the border. Now, the international line is in the middle of the Rio Grande, so as you might imagine, that moves as the water levels also move. And what we've seen is that the migrants simply walk along the water by that lower level concertina wire. And normally, Boris, what they would do is they would walk on this path that's along the banks of the Rio Grande. Well, because of the concertina wire, now what we see are women and children walking on the water, being told by Texas National Guard members and members of the Texas Department of Public Safety to continue walking until south of this property, where then they are taken for processing. So the short answer is no, it is not stopping illegal immigration.
A federal appeals court that has kept Texas's new immigration law on hold, which would allow the state to arrest and deport migrants suspected of illegally crossing the border. The Supreme Court may ultimately decide if the state has that power. Texas has already mounted an aggressive border operation, and because of that, more migrants are attempting to cross the border in Arizona, taking a much more dangerous route. Our Camilo Montoya Galvez got a firsthand look from above.
Out here, there is nothing.
This desolate stretch of the Arizona border is one of the deadliest for migrants. Each day, federal agents take to the skies. Their search for people in distress often turns into a rescue mission.
You've had to rescue migrants.
Oh, absolutely.
And children, too.
Oh, children, women, older folks.
In its latest annual count, Border Patrol reported a record 895 migrant deaths, 142 of them here in the Tucson sector. This is one of the most remote sections of the U.S.-Mexico border. It is also now the busiest Border Patrol sector for illegal crossings. Migrants from across the globe are using gaps in the border wall, just like this one, to enter the U.S. As Texas has become more hostile to migrants, the number of people crossing in Arizona has soared. Most are looking to claim asylum. How long was the journey from Nepal?
It took too long.
Why did you come?
Political problem.
Political problems in Nepal?
Yes.
In Texas, migrant crossings have plunged by over 50% since late last year.
Right now on First at 4, a border wall built to keep migrants out has gates wide open.
It's a common practice during Arizona's monsoon that anti-wall activists say clearly demonstrates that the wall is really nothing more than a political stunt. This video taken by the Center for Biological Diversity shows one of the many open gates along the U.S.-Mexico border.
Team 12's Nyla Charles shows us the conditions on the ground along Arizona's southern border.
This video taken along the U.S.-Mexico border shows an open gate in Arizona's border wall. Neither a migrant nor Border Patrol agent in sight.
As Congress debates changes in immigration policy, there's a new focus on a small town at the heart of the migrant crisis. Julia Ainsley is there for us.
Tonight, this is the new epicenter of the border crisis, tiny Lukeville, Arizona, where the number of migrants is pushing Border Patrol past capacity. More than 9,000 illegal crossings along the southern border just yesterday, nearly 3,000 of them in this area. Behind me, there's a group of about 40 migrants, including young children, that were just brought in by Border Patrol after they called 911 because they were stranded in the desert. Border agents so backed up, they're taking migrants to Tucson, where they're processed and most are released into the U.S. The Lukeville International Crossing now closed for 11 days due to overwhelming demand on border agents from migrants. Business owners say they're paying a price.
Last week we had made $5,000, which is what we usually would make within an 8-hour shift.
We find places along the border wall where smugglers cut holes for migrants. Yesterday, cutting through 16 times. They mark the dates here where they fixed the breaches, and you can see this one was just fixed recently. U.S. and Mexican officials tell NBC News one reason for the rise, Mexico's Border Patrol equivalent is running low on funds and stopping fewer migrants. But Republicans blame President Biden's border policies for encouraging migrants to come and are demanding changes before they'll pass more funding for Ukraine. This tonight from the Border Patrol Union.
What we need to see from this administration is that they're serious about border security, because when you're allowing so many individuals to come across the border, that preoccupies a lot of agents.
President Biden calls GOP proposals extreme. Migrants tell us they're desperate.
But he's turned his back on first Afghanistan. Soldiers were killed, billions of dollars left behind. The Taliban's in charge. He's now turning his back on Israel. He's turning his back on Israel. And he's been turning his back on America since he's been elected. He's trying to jam EVs up our tailpipe. He wants boys to play girls' sports. He doesn't care if they're injured during a game or their opportunities are taken away. He has an open border with Hamas members, terrorists coming into this country. We know, we've arrested them. Criminals everywhere. He's absolutely destroying this country piece by piece every day. And only Fox News talks about it. And Texas is doing something about it. You know, Maria, I always say to folks here in Texas, we have to get it right. We have to take a stand. We have to fight, because there's not another Texas to move to. We're it.